Hello there everybody, my name is Tyler and this is my first ever YouTube video. This is long overdue. I said my New Year's resolution, one of them was to post a YouTube video related to movies at least once every single week. However, the caveat there is I didn't necessarily say when the New Year's resolution was going to start, but starting from now on, I'm going to be posting at least one every single week. Likely it's going to be like one every 4 days or so is going to be the pace I'm going to try and keep up with for this. But today for the first video ever is going to be the Q&A episode that I was talking about on Twitter. So that's where I made everyone notified of what I was going to be doing for my first ever video. I asked for questions on there. You guys delivered with tons of great questions, very diverse and different questions that I'm going to go through every single one. So if you don't want to miss out on something like that in the future, make sure you follow me over there on Twitter. Links for everything's going to be in my description. And again, of course, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button because I have videos coming every 4 days or so-ish. Like I said, the next video is going to be coming out on Tuesday, which is going to be my review of How to Blow Up a Pipeline, as well as an interview with the cast, which is awesome. It's my first ever movie interview ever. So I'm excited for you all to see it. Also very nervous for you all to see it because I was very nervous doing the interview questions, and I just hope I look like I came off somewhat competent. But I interviewed Ariella Barrer, who was the writer of the movie as well as the star of it. Lucas Gage starred in the movie, who's also the star of You, Euphoria, White Lotus, so many other things. And then also Sasha Lane, who is the star of A24's American Honey. So awesome that I got to interview them. It was a crazy day. So I'm very excited for y'all to see that. But let's get into today's episode of the Q&A. I'm going to want to do Q&As regularly. We do them once a month on ReelTok, but that's kind of for all four of us, as well as it's kind of a different audience. So I want to do them also on this personal account as well. So if you have other questions for me that aren't answered in this video, comment them down below in this video, and I will use the comments on this video for my next Q&A video. I'll try to do these maybe once a month or so, maybe once every other month. But here we go. Let's go ahead and jump right into this. I'm going to edit these in, so I'm going to post snippets of everyone's question on here. So if you're asking questions for the future videos, you'll get kind of a shout out here. So first off, we got Brandon Ray McCorkle. How did you start with making videos? So I've made YouTube videos, or I'm going to start with YouTube. So I've made YouTube videos ever since I was like able to, like literally 6th grade is when I first started my first YouTube channel. This was like 2009 or something. So YouTube was super new. I made duct tape wallets. I showed people how to make them. I made a ton myself, showed people what I was making. I did it with my neighbor as well. So that was kind of our thing. Like in 6th grade, we just made duct tape wallets, made videos on them. I got decently popular. Like I made duct tape wallets for people online and sold them. I also had a local store in Minneapolis that had 3 locations that ordered like a couple hundred of them. So I produced all those for them and gave them all the duct tape wallets for them to sell in their stores. So definitely a lot of cool experience from when I was young. But after that, I kind of phased out of duct tape wallets around like 8th grade or so. Just kind of grew out of it. Then moved on to doing more vlogs with friends. Once I got into college, I did some college-based advice videos. Once I graduated college, I did some financial advice videos. And then got into Backseat Coach, where I did a lot of sports stuff, and now with movies. So I've kind of been always making content for as long as I can remember. So yeah, that's kind of how I got my start with that. I've just always loved making videos. This next question is kind of related. Tyler, you seem to be very active in the content creation space and appear to put a lot of time into it, editing, producing, creating brands, etc. Do you see a future in this, or is it all just a hobby to you? So Christian, thank you for that question. I do see a future in it personally. I want to do both my career that I do full-time and social media concurrently as long as I possibly can. Realistically, I could probably try and make the jump earlier, obviously, and just try to do only social media and content creation full time. But that would be a lot more risky, and I'm not that much of a risk taker. And there's a lot of major life purchases that I want to be making and still paying off and all that stuff. So I'm going to be trying to do this full time eventually, but it's going to be at least a couple of years until I get to that point. But definitely it's in the future. Like that's definitely my plan and my hopes and what I'm working towards. So this isn't just a hobby to me. I very much love creating brands, editing, producing, all this type of content creation stuff. So definitely trying to make this a future for me. Also kind of in the same realm, I tried to group these questions in to make it kind of flow nicely. So Harrison asked, what made you want to start making content? So I've always been creative. I've always been wanting to make videos. Like I said, since 6th grade, I've been making YouTube videos. When the pandemic first hit is really when I started making TikToks, just kind of fun, random ones. Like if there's a trend, I'd throw something up like in 2021 or 2020, I don't even know, long time ago. And then with Backseat Coach 2 years ago, I started being more serious with posting content. And I never planned on making TikToks for that account because this was like a sports blog I did online with other people, but no one else was doing the TikTok. So I'm like, hey, I'll start posting TikToks for it. And from there it just took off. I just fell in love with making TikToks. And then eventually got into movies in terms of producing content for movies, and that's really taken off as well, and kind of been what my main thing has been since then. Yeah, so I've just always enjoyed making it, and usually just whatever my passion is right now, I want to go out and just start making videos on it, because I love just sharing my passions with other people and finding other communities of people that also have the same passions. And then also just kind of on a more dystopian front, the episode Nosedive of Black Mirror, like I really think it's the one with Bryce Dallas Howard where you have like a social currency. I legitimately do see that as being something like in the future that we will have to deal with. Like Black Mirror has a lot of dystopian future thoughts, and I think that one to me is something that very likely could end up happening. So I think it'll be nice to, have some form of social presence online eventually in the future, or it could be our ultimate demise. One or the other, nothing in between. It's either going to be the more you're online, the more destructive it's going to be for you, or the more online you are, the more beneficial. But in reality, it's really just because I've always loved making content. I love sharing my passions. I love finding other people who also have the same passions, and building fun communities. And I really love the community we have here in Movie Talk and the ReelTok podcast. Yeah, so moving on to some food questions, which I haven't eaten yet today. It's like 1:30 in the afternoon, so I know this is just going to make me hungry and want to start getting some lunch in. But Cal Rye asked, do you like burgers? Yes, I think it's pretty common to like burgers. The one in the menu, I've seen the menu twice now, and every time I see that scene of Anya Taylor-Joy's burger that she ultimately gets from the chef at the end, one of the most delicious food scenes like of all time. And anytime I think about burgers, I think about that scene. So yeah, definitely like burgers. Favorite Thanksgiving dish from Casual Film Enjoyer, Nick Persad. I love cheesy hash browns. I don't think that's like a staple one, but my family always made it growing up, and I still like to continue that tradition on. Cheesy hash browns are elite. Turkey's fine, but I've always been a ham guy, so if I had to go for a meat, I'm going ham. And then mac and cheese, like probably the only time ever for like the year, other than maybe like Christmas, like that I go to a gathering and have mac and cheese would be Thanksgiving. So those are like the three elite tier ones for me. Riley Stafford, aka my girlfriend, asks, how many sushi rolls can you eat in one sitting? Too many is the answer. So sushi is my favorite food by a mile, and me and Seth from the ReelTok podcast, we share this bond together. And sushi for me, like, so if we're talking just like a standard basic sushi roll, just like, typical like spicy tuna roll or something, so not something with a lot of frills and toppings on it, just like a standard sushi roll that's cut into like 6 or 8 pieces, we'll say 8 pieces, just a normal roll. I could probably crush 10 at least. I don't know. In one sitting, sushi just goes down so easy for me. Like I love it so much. It's not that filling for me. So I could probably crush like 10 sushi rolls in one sitting. That might be overambitious, but I'm talking like the most basic, small, typical sushi rolls. Nothing with like, a ton of stuff like loaded up on top of it, but like I could crush 10. And now I want to crush 10. Owen LaPlavy asks, what motivates you in life? Asking for some form of motivation. I don't know if I'm like the greatest person to ask for this for motivation in life, but just rewatched The Banshees of Inisherin yesterday. So, call him how he's just like, I'm just not gonna be friends with you anymore, Podrick, because like I want to go achieve stuff in life so people remember me when I die. That's basically me. Not actually. Like I really could care less if anyone like knows who I am or remembers me when I die or anything like that. But I do just always have this weird push internally that I probably need to, talk through with some professional or something as to why I'm like this way. But I just always keep myself insanely busy. Always like to have side projects going on. I always like to have my plate overflowing with stuff, because I just start to feel like lazy and feel like I'm like wasting my time if I'm not always like building towards something. Like I have my career obviously, but I'm also going to grad school right now to get my second master's degree. And at the same time, I have like, my TikTok and my social media I'm doing, the podcast I'm doing. Trying to renovate this house that I just bought and try and, get a new house in the future. And like, there's just always like a million things I like to have on my plate, which isn't really healthy. And I don't really know what motivates me to get there. Again, I probably need some professional to talk to about that one. But for me, it's just, I always feel like very stressed out and anxious if I don't have a lot I'm doing. Like I suck at relaxing. Like, I mean, I can watch a movie, but other than that, like I suck at just taking like a day off and doing nothing. So I don't know. I don't know what motivates me in life, but I just like to keep myself so busy that I have no choice to keep grinding on stuff. So terrible advice, Owen, but that's the truth for me at least. Hazelnut, what are 10 movies everyone should see at least once? So when I was compiling this list to respond to you, I figured like these are all going to be very basic movies that everyone will probably see at one point in their life, but I don't know. I feel like to do honor to this question, I didn't want to go for some weird deep cut or something. I feel like I'm just genuinely going to go like if I had to tell someone who just wanted to get into movies and had never seen any movies other than like, the modern blockbuster, what are 10 that they should definitely see at least once. This would be kind of a list of like a starter list of like, here, just start getting your foot into more like more of the staples that everyone kind of needs to check off their list at some point. So the 10 I had, the first that immediately came to mind is Schindler's List. Absolutely need to see at least once. The Godfather, Pulp Fiction, Saving Private Ryan, The Matrix, Jurassic Park, Raiders of the Lost Ark, 2001: A Space Odyssey, of course, Psycho, and 12 Angry Men. So I kind of went with this list, and there's obviously way more than just 10 everyone should see at least once, but there's a lot of these movies on this list that really inspired future movies, especially like 2001: A Space Odyssey. Psycho has a lot of influence. Pulp Fiction is very influential. And then there's also just like the classic staple blockbusters like Jurassic Park, The Matrix, Raiders of the Lost Ark that you just really need to cross off at least once. So I'd say those are 10 that I would confidently say everyone should see at least once in their life. Okay. Brandon Ray McCorkle. Do you play video games? What are some of your favorite video games you've played before? I do not play video games. I have a PS4 and a PS3 as well as a gaming PC, but the reason I have like such a beefy gaming PC with like 2080 Ti and stuff is because it's more for video editing and stuff like that. So I don't play games like total in the past 5 years of my life. So I graduated college a little under 5 years ago, or my first college, so my undergrad. In the last 5 years of my life, I probably played like 30 hours total combined of video games. Like I just don't game ever. It's very rare if I do. But the ones that are my favorites, like growing up, like when I was like in like junior high and stuff, it'd be Call of Duty. Like I was, obsessed with those as most people were. But my probably all-time favorite is probably Madden football. In college, I played it a ton. I was like ranked pretty highly on the PlayStation side of things for Madden, and I was playing it all the time in college. So Madden's probably my all-time favorite, but I don't play video games. Okay. Riley again asks, if all of the ReelTok co-hosts were dangling off a cliff, who would you save? So Cam, George, Seth, I'm sorry, but if I can only save one of you, it's a pretty easy choice for me. It's Cam. And there's two reasons for this. One, he's the lightest, so it's going to be the easiest to save him and, not have to worry about, me going down as well. Like Seth and George, they're jacked. They're huge. They're strong. Cam, he's fit, but, he's not that level. So I feel like I could confidently save him. Then second, Seth and George are just behemoths of content creators on TikTok. And if both of them get taken out, that just opens up more runway for me and Cam to just start dominating the space. So, easily eliminate some competition while also being sure I can save the lightest one. So definitely going to be Cam. I'm grinding through these. Nathan Fit 7, recommendations on how to get better at technical film analysis. I'm really not the person to ask this. Like, I don't want to ever pretend like I'm anywhere near some technically trained person to view film with a critical eye. I'm trying to get better at it, but I wouldn't say I'm anywhere near the person you should be asking. But I'll say this is kind of like the progression of how I've watched film over the past 10 years plus. I feel like the first thing that like everyone does when they first watch a movie is just like the plot. Did you enjoy the movie for what it was? Like the story that was being told? Did you enjoy it? Yes or no? And then kind of from there you go into the acting. So not only is this a movie you enjoy, but were you captivated and compelled by the performances in the movie, whether they were emotional, funny, realistic and authentic. And then from there, I feel like once you got plot and you're analyzing acting, you can kind of start going into cinematography. But I'm going to call this like cinematography basic. So like cinematography light. And this is basically like kind of what the people think cinematography is when it's really much deeper. So I feel like the first thing you kind of think of is like, wow, that shot looked really cool. Or this landscape looks awesome. Or I really like the colors here. So kind of the basic interpretation of cinematography. And then kind of from there, keep continuing down the rabbit hole, just trying to start appreciating more and more things and noticing more and more things as you're watching movies. So next, I'd say like score and audio effects, which kind of what you're hearing, pairing that with what you're seeing. For me, I might be like rare in this, but sound is like honestly maybe even more important to me than the visuals. Like I get super thrown off by bad sound compared to like cinematography. I can kind of do with amazing cinematography or basic, but as long as the sound is great. And then from there, maybe like an advanced version of cinematography, like how are the shots framed? What's the movement of the camera like? Where are the actors being staged on set? How's the director setting up these shots? How's the cinematographer getting these shots and getting these angles and moving the camera and telling the story through the lens? So that's where you're starting to get a little more deeper into what the true meat and potatoes of cinematography is. And then finally, just trying to do even deeper than that, like try and draw connections, symbolisms, metaphors from things other than what is explicitly being said and shown in the movie, whether it's, based on the colors that you're seeing on the screen or the costumes or just subtleties that the director's trying to point out that might not be super obvious, but try to draw connections and symbolism from that. maybe 5 times out of 10, maybe 9 times out of 10, you're going to be completely wrong or way off with what you think like a symbol or a metaphor might mean in a movie. But film and art in general is subjective. So whatever you try and grab from a movie, it can be your own truth. So I would just say, try and just, as you watch more and more movies, just try and start understanding and appreciating more things than just like the plot and the acting, and just try and keep peeling back that onion until you feel like you got like a well-rounded analysis of the movie as a whole. But again, I'm not like the guy to ask about this. I just say, in a basic sense, try and notice more and more every single time. Will Davison asks, least deserving Best Picture winner. I didn't do a ton of research into this, but I'd say the one that just really jumps out every time is Forrest Gump for me. This is back when only 5 nominees were nominated for Best Picture, and 2 of the other 5 were The Shawshank Redemption, which should be a Best Picture winner in almost any single year ever of the Oscars, and then also Pulp Fiction, which I just think is a much better, much more influential movie than Forrest Gump. I think Forrest Gump's an okay movie. I think it's like good at best. But Pulp Fiction and Shawshank are both great movies, and I don't think Forrest Gump deserved to win over either of them. Favorite Hans Zimmer score. So I feel like when a lot of people talk about Hans Zimmer scores, like he's obviously one of the greats. He has such a diverse library, but I feel like the one people go to a lot is like either Interstellar or The Dark Knight, which are great scores. But for me, probably my favorite Hans Zimmer score is Inception. But there's so many of them that I could listen to endlessly on repeat. Just makes straight bangers. Who's your favorite actor and actress? And then you also say T, who's at No Coder, that your favorite actor is Daniel Day-Lewis. The best actor you've seen is Daniel Day-Lewis, but he's not your favorite. And there's actors you'll watch every movie show they're in, even if you know it's going to be a poor film. I'm the same way. If I love an actor, like I'll watch it even if I know it's going to be rough. But my favorite actor is Jake Gyllenhaal. And then honorable mentions, I will say like Daniel Day-Lewis and Joaquin Phoenix, but Daniel Day-Lewis is retired. Hopefully he comes out, but you know what? I hope he's enjoying retirement. And then favorite actresses or actress, I'd say is Saoirse Ronan, closely followed by Rachel McAdams. I'll watch anything any of those 5 people are in. Which filmmakers would you like to have a one-on-one conversation with? Asked by Daro Baldacchino. Maybe got that right. I'd probably like to go Damien Chazelle. I think I can confidently say he's my favorite director at this point, even though he's only released 5 movies, 4 that most people are aware of, with Whiplash, La La Land, Babylon, and First Man. And I don't know. I just feel like he has such crazy set pieces, especially in Babylon and La La Land. And Whiplash is just such an intimate story about, a musician trying to be the best at all costs. And I don't know, I just feel like he just has such an ability to do these just crazy, impactful films about people just giving everything that they can give, no matter what the results or the negative outcomes or consequences could be. And in doing so, especially like I said, La La Land and Babylon, they're such bombastic and crazy experiences. I just really want to know what goes into something like that. And then another filmmaker would be Richard Linklater, just because he has so many dialogue-intensive films, like the Before trilogy, like Boyhood, he's just the king of coming-of-age stories. Like I've said that time and time again, and every one of his movies are so rich and just insightful and thoughtful dialogue that I really just love to have a conversation with him and just understand what his inspirations are for these. Like, is this all just coming from his head? Does he have favorite authors he reads from? Does he have philosophers he really pulls a lot of this stuff from? I think it'd be very interesting to peel back the mind of Richard Linklater. My girlfriend asked, what do I want for Christmas? So my physical media collection only exists with one Blu-ray, and that's Empire of Light, because it was sent to me. Shout out to don't even know the production company, but shout out to people who sent it to me. I think it's Searchlight Pictures. I don't know. But I would love to continue building my physical media collection or really start from scratch. So if you're already looking, 9 months ahead of time for my Christmas gift, Criterion collection, some Criterions, maybe ones I haven't seen. So Criterion movies, steelbooks, some physical media like that, some movies, but not just a basic Blu-ray or something. I want like steelbooks or Criterions. So there you go. You can start pondering that. Jay asked top 10 comic book movies and best actor working today. I kind of answered, I think my best actor and my favorite actor align. I think Jake Gyllenhaal can body any role. I'm very excited to see him in all the movies he has coming up soon, with Roadhouse and The Covenant and whatever else he has coming. I will be watching all of them. But top 10 comic book movies, I'll go in reverse order. So I wrote these down. So number 10, X-Men Days of Future Past. Number 9, The Dark Knight, probably a hot take. A lot of people have it higher. 8, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which also might be a hot take that people have higher. 7, Captain America the Winter Soldier. 6, The Batman. 5, Batman Begins. 4, Captain America Civil War. 3, Logan. 2, Avengers Infinity War. And 1 is Joker. And I don't care if you hate that take. Brandon Ray McCorkle with another question. What's your favorite draft on the ReelTok podcast? I'd say the animal draft comes to mind, just with Parasite being such a curveball and Nightcrawler being a curveball. And yeah, there's a lot of debate and contention in that draft. And those are my favorite drafts. They're the ones where we just get, at each other's throats with debating whether a pick is valid or not. And that happens more often than you or I or anyone would think. So any draft where we get super contentious, so the animal draft is the first one that comes to mind. George Carmy's dad, I don't think it's actually George Carmy's dad, but if it is, hello, Mr. Carmy. Which ReelTok member would you least trust to babysit your child if you had one? So I would say the one I trust the most would be Seth, which might be a curveball choice, but I'm going to say Seth simply because I love British accents. I adore British accents, and I will purposely go on dates with my probably wife at that time, Riley, and we will... or even if she's against this, I would leave my baby with Seth as much as possible just so he can try and latch onto that British accent, so I can just have a British accent baby, please. And the least would probably be Cam, which is counterintuitive because he's the only one who has a kid, but I just don't really want my kid to be like a Star Wars MCU guy. Like, if he wants to find that on his own accord, perfect. If he finds out he loves those movies on his own, that's great. But I feel like Cam would kind of like force my kid to just watch a bunch of those movies, so I'm gonna just like say no thank you on that one. But Seth, please give my kid a British accent. Jordan Lawler asks, if you could only watch the movies of one director for the rest of your life, who would you choose? Not necessarily your favorite, but the director with a broad enough filmography to keep you entertained as long as possible. And I think that last sentence is really the key here, Jordan. So Steven Spielberg is nowhere near my favorite director, and it's not like I'm not trying to slight him or say he's bad at all. I love a lot of his movies, but I wouldn't put him in my top 5 or even top 10 maybe favorite directors of all time. But in terms of someone who's just such a broad library of so many, he has things from dramas to action to sci-fi to like, he has just such a broad depth of movies under him. And a lot of them are great movies and they're got blockbuster potential. They're just movies that are very rewatchable as well. So I'd say Steven Spielberg would be the one who I'd pick for this, even though he's not nearly my favorite director. But I just think if I had to only choose one filmography, I think his is about as good as you can get. Lucci asks, top 5 actors, actresses in their best movie. For the sake of time, I'm just going to do my top 3. But number 1, Jake Gyllenhaal. I think his best movie and best performance is Nightcrawler. Then we have number 2, Daniel Day-Lewis. I think his best movie is There Will Be Blood. And 3 is Joaquin Phoenix. I think his best performance is Joker. And then for actresses, I'm going to say number 1 is Saoirse Ronan. I'm going to say her best movie is Little Women. Number 2, Rachel McAdams, best movie is About Time. And number 3, Margot Robbie, whose best movie is also About Time, which was her debut. But since I've already used About Time, I'll say Babylon for Margot Robbie. What is your favorite soundtrack from a movie? I'm going to say La La Land. And that's, if anyone knows me, they know that's not a crazy take at all. I listen to that soundtrack religiously all the time. Ever since I first saw the movie, I cannot stop constantly listening to that soundtrack. Vance asks, what is a movie you wish you could watch again for the first time ever? I'm going to say About Time for this one because the first time I ever watched this was with one of my old roommates. He was my roommate at one point in college, as well as we lived together in Texas once we both graduated. But I think he just had it on in our apartment, and I just kind of like sat down. I was like on my phone eating dinner, like not really paying attention. I was like, oh, he's just chilling in the living room. I'll go join. And the first time I ever watched it, I think I probably would have rated it. Like, I didn't rate it at the time because I was rating movies, but I probably would have given it like a 3 out of 5 because I just gave it like 0 of my attention and just was joined probably late in it. And I was like, oh, that's like a really cute, fun movie. Didn't really get fully emotionally invested in the plot because I wasn't paying enough attention. But obviously, as everyone knows, it's my favorite movie of all time now. I absolutely adore About Time. So I really wish I could go back and for the first time watch it in like a theater setting if possible and just fully appreciate it and be attentive to it the entire time of my first viewing rather than, kind of just having a throwaway first viewing and not really, it was probably like a year or 2 later I actually watched it alone for the first time and really started to appreciate it. But yeah, I'm going to say About Time. Top 3 DreamWorks movies. I don't have a ranking of these officially, so I'm just going to go with like 3 that I really, really love. I eventually will get these all rated and ranked, but Puss in Boots: The Last Wish obviously is the one most recently. Incredible movie. Absolutely loved it in the theater experience, and it's very rewatchable as well. Then How to Train Your Dragon, incredible trilogy. I think my favorite might actually be 2, but I am long overdue for a rewatch of them, so I'm going to say How to Train Your Dragon 2 ? And then number 3, I'll say Kung Fu Panda. I just really enjoy all those movies. I think they're really, really enjoyable films. And then Over the Hedge is just like an honorable mention. I don't know if it's aged great. I haven't seen it since like it first came out, but I loved it when it came out. So I have to rewatch it because I haven't seen it in probably 10, maybe 15 years. But I think that one was a banger, in my opinion, but I'll need a rewatch. Daniel Fisher asks, what is the best / most important element of film? And what's the one you look out for the most? So again, I'm not the best person to ask this, but in terms of just like my personal preference, I'd say for me, honestly, acting, even though I'm going to give you like a proper answer of like a technical item, but for me, acting is like the big one. I don't care how pretty a movie looks or how incredible any of the technical elements is, but if the acting is just poor and it just takes me out of the movie and doesn't get me sucked in, then everything else can be thrown away at that point. But if you want a technical aspect, for me, cinematography, as I mentioned a little earlier, I really appreciate it, but it doesn't really make or break a movie for me. Sound design is something that can break a movie for me. Like I get it just for some reason about like for me, sound, if it's bad in a movie, just completely takes me out of a film. Like I just cannot be stuck in something if the sound editing's off, which means like, you know, like the voices aren't matching up with like the mouth movement, which I am super sensitive to. I notice that all the time. And then just like bad sound effects, I think just really take me out of the moment. So I think sound editing and sound design would probably be like the most important technical element for me personally. Brandon Ray McCorkle, once again, asks, how's your bracket? One, honestly, wasn't terrible. Like it's dead now. I don't have any of the final four right, but I don't think a lot of people did. But I had Texas winning it all. They lasted quite a while. They lost in the Elite Eight barely at the end. But my bracket wasn't terrible. I think it got to like, for a lot of the time it was in the 90 percentiles. And I think right now it's at like 78%, but it's dead now. I don't have anyone left. But yeah, crazy year for March Madness. And bracket didn't do too hot. Do I listen to Bad Bunny? No, I do not, Mao. Should I? Am I missing out? Riley, my girlfriend, asks, how do you get such a hot girlfriend? Super like on Tinder is a great feature. And that's how I got Riley. Marcellus, if you had the say for Letterbox to make one feature that you want available to everyone on their app and they had to say yes, what would you ask them to improve about their app? This one's easy for me. I ask for this all the time. Threaded comments, please let me respond to individual comments. It's infuriating that this isn't a thing yet on Letterboxd. Let's keep going here. Casual film enjoyer, favorite light bulb type, soft white, bright white, or daylight. Soft white every single day of the week and Sunday. Derek Beck, have you ever thought about a sports podcast? Yes, and I did it for like 5 or 10 episodes, but I was doing it alone. Similar like this, just me ranting and talking alone. But I'm done with that at this point. I think a backseat coach is like a thing of the past. I still love sports. I will always love sports, but making content about it, I'm just not very passionate about it anymore. So I have had a sports podcast. I definitely would be interested in doing it again at some point, but for right now, not really interested in it. Oli asks, favorite British TV show and film. So TV show, I'm going to say Black Mirror, but after season 2, it got sold to Netflix, and now it's like an American show. So if that doesn't count, I'll say Sherlock. I wish we could have more seasons and episodes of Sherlock. Absolutely adore Benedict Cumberbatch in that role. And then for movie, About Time, of course, my favorite movie of all time, and it's from Richard Curtis, and it takes place in Britain. And then 1917 would be another one, I would say, for favorite British film. Veer Shah asks, when do you find time for movies in between work and your personal life? Lots of multitasking, and a lot of people don't like that answer when I say like I'm watching movies while I'm doing other stuff, but whenever I watch a movie, like while I'm working on like homework or doing other stuff, it's never a movie like for the first time. Similar to like when I'm on a plane and watching movies while I'm on a flight, never watching something for the first time because like I feel like it's just not a proper way to fully ingest a movie for the very first viewing. So I'll be rewatching some like old favorites or movies I've already seen before while I'm like working on other stuff, just as like background noise. But for watching movies for the first time, I usually just have a nightcap every single night, like probably at least 5 days a week. I'll end the night by just watching a movie like on my couch or in my bed or what have you, where I'm just doing nothing but watching the movie. And then my girlfriend, who showed up on this Q&A many, many times already, she works nights as a nurse. So there's nights where she'll be working from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So those nights I might watch, 2 or 3 movies because, it's just me hanging out alone at night. So get a lot of movies done that way. So really probably every week I probably average like 10-ish movies, 10 to 15 maybe. No, 15 is the high end. For a week average, probably 10. And probably 3 or 4 of those are just like rewatches that I'm like working on other stuff while doing. And then every night I'll watch like 1 or 2 if she's working. Jay, the White Wolf 77, what is your favorite thing about your movie watching setup? I love the variety I have. So I have my triple monitor set up in front of me right here that I can have a movie playing on one monitor while also working on other stuff. So that's good for rewatches. I love my living room. It's got a very nice comfy couch with a flat screen TV with a nice sound bar. So very immersive experience in there. And then in my bedroom, I have a projector that shines across the entire wall. So really, I just love having like either a computer, a living room setup with a couch, or in bed with a projector. I just love the variety I have in my movie watching setups. Brandon, your last question. Have I seen The Last Samurai? It's your all-time favorite movie? Well, I need to It's definitely a movie I'm long overdue for watching. I've not seen it, so since this is your all-time favorite movie and you asked so many great questions, I will move it up my watch list priority. Gabe Cranford, have I seen Under the Silver Lake? I have not seen this one either, so I'm getting exposed. 2 movies that I have not seen yet, but I'll make sure to watch it since you're recommending it and you say you love it. AMJWG, William G. How tall are you? You saw me in a picture with George, and I was much taller than him. Yeah, I'm the king alpha of TikTok for height for movie talk. Maybe Andrew's visuals would push it close, but I'm 6'3". That's my official height. Andrew Elsman asked, what are some of the most overrated movies in your opinion? I'd say Aliens for sure. I really think Alien is an incredible movie, but Aliens I think is a little overrated. Taxi Driver is a very, very, very good movie, but it just doesn't really feel like a 5 out of 5 to me, but I think people unanimously say it's one of the greatest movies. For more recent movies, The Tragedy of Macbeth by the Coen brothers, absolutely hated that and just did not like that movie whatsoever. But I don't tend to like much of the Coen brothers movies. And then Steven Spielberg's West Side Story, did not care for that at all. Back to my girlfriend for once again. Riley Stafford asks, what's your favorite ReelTok podcast moment? Hers is Seth calling people social experiments. That's an all-timer. That's on the Mount Rushmore of ReelTok moments, I'd say. For me, I'd probably say The Lion King from Cam, where I stole that from him. Just because he was so confident, the setup to that was so perfect, where he's like, oh yeah, I got my last one. It was the Animals draft. He's like, yeah, it's okay. Like, I already know what my last pick's going to be. Because I think he felt only George would be the one who'd take it from him. But I had the second to last pick right before Cam, and I was like, I know he's thinking The Lion King. Like, this isn't at all what I would pick personally, but I was like, you know what? I know he wants The Lion King. He's so confident about it. I'm just going to pick The Lion King. So took that from him. He raged. Great moment. One of the greats. How did the 4 ReelTok members all first come and meet and come together? So, long story. That'll be answered on the ReelTok Q&A this week, and we're going to do like a whole real quick eventually, like really breaking down our origin story. But for the quick fast forward version, George, Seth, and Cam all did like TikTok lives together. Where it was all 3 of them kind of just like got on TikTok live for like an hour, probably a year ago at this point, and just like chatted, answered questions, riffed with each other, developed a rapport. And from there, Seth posted on TikTok story. He's like, would you guys like to see a podcast of us 3? And it got crazy, crazy, crazy response. So then from there, those 3 were planning on making a podcast. And I was like thinking about it. I was like, man, like I'm going to be really bummed out. Like, cause at this point I already had like personal relationships with all 3 of them. Like we would message and DM and stuff and talk about various things. So I was like, damn, I'm going to be really bummed if like my 3 friends on Movie Talk all start a podcast. I'm not a part of it. And at this point I'd had plenty of experiences of me doing my own podcast, producing other people's podcasts, editing other people's podcasts. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to shoot my shot because I actually have value I can provide here. Like I know what to do. I know how to get this going, which I didn't think or know if they had at the time. So I was like, hey, let me join this, please. Like I was literally just like laying, I remember I was like tanning outside in my bed and like my tanning, whatever, like lounge chair that was outside in my backyard in Arizona. And I was like, man, you know what? I'm just going to shoot my shot and like message them all and be like, hey, like if you want to have me in, like I have all the expertise and knowledge and editing ability and producing ability and know how to get this off the ground. So please let me join. They all let me join. And in their words, they'd say like the podcast wouldn't exist without me. So I'll say that's in their words, not mine, just because, you know, I'm the one who does all the back end and editing and production. So that's kind of how we all met and came together. Once we all started talking, we messaged a ton, and we had an Instagram DM group chat, and then we got a text group chat, and there's probably like 2 months or so of us just talking and texting every single day before we actually got this podcast off the ground. But yeah, I think at this point we all have a very good rapport. I've met George in person. George has met Seth in person. But I have not met Seth yet. I have not met Cam yet. Cam has not met any of us yet. So eventually we'll all get together and actually meet and maybe do like a live in-person podcast. Have I seen A Million Ways to Die in the West? I have. It's been too long since I have. I liked it, but I didn't love it from my memory of it. But again, like I've probably seen like 700, 800 movies since then, so I can't quite remember. But I will give it a rewatch. I do remember liking it. And then the last question on this Q&A, 34 minutes of straight talking. So I hope you've been enjoying this. Hit that like button if you haven't already. But Casual Film Enjoyer asks, final question, worst restaurant experience you've ever had? And it came 2.5 months ago, and my girlfriend and I went to Universal Studios in Orlando, the Toothsome Chocolate Emporium. If you've been to Universal Orlando, you know what I'm talking about because it's right by the entrance gate to the theme park, and it's a huge building that looks like a chocolate factory that like you can't really miss. Like if you've been to Universal Orlando, you know exactly the building it is. If you don't know it right now, Google it, find a picture, you'll be like, oh yeah, seen that. It was awful, like terrible. We got there, And we went there for like a late dinner because we just were so drawn to it, because like the outside of it just looks like an awesome time, and we also wanted like a nice dessert after. So we went in there, ordered, I can't even remember what we ordered. We just ordered like a standard appetizer and like 2 entrees because we hadn't eaten all day. We were at the park walking around, and the food took forever to get to us, and it was not that busy. And it just took so long to get there. And then when it finally got there, I'm probably forgetting some stuff in the store because my girlfriend was super passionate about this. She wrote like a whole Yelp review and everything. She's like, this is terrible. But for me, like, I'm usually like, I can eat anything in a restaurant. I don't care if it's like cold or like not cooked exactly how I like it or doesn't taste the best. Like, I'm still eating it all and I'm getting my food in. But for this place, like, it was so cold and not good that I just couldn't even finish it. And I was starving, but I like literally was like, I can't even force myself to eat this. It's so bad, so disgusting. The servers never checked in on us. And then we ordered like dessert, which is a like specialty they're known for. And they brought it out, and basically they like didn't even have half the ingredients that they were listed on there, and they didn't prevent, like, normally they come in like the super like artsy big chalice glass thing, so it's supposed to look like really cool and aesthetic, but they didn't even have any left, so they just like put like ice cream on a plate and brought it out to us. And like our waitress was like, oh, this is gonna be perfect for Instagram. I was like, these look like shit, like we're not posting any pictures, this is like embarrassing for you guys. And then at this point, like this whole night in general took like 2 hours long or something. And at this point, like everyone else in the restaurant was having terrible experiences too. Like Riley and I were just passive about it. We're just kind of like, whatever, this sucks, but we'll just like get over it. But there was like plenty of other people like raising their hands, yelling, like trying to get like attention to people, because like the waiters and people just like, weren't coming around to anyone. And this was not packed. Like, it was very, very empty. And there was a lot of other people getting very, very, very angry and upset and very loudly vocal about it. But we just kind of chilled, and then after it, we went on Yelp and wrote terrible reviews. But yeah, that was an awful experience. Never going back there again. Just disgusting food and just like a terrible atmosphere. Like, they basically just invested all their money into making the outside of the building look cool to entice people to come in, and then they just deliver just disgusting garbage food. So Toothsome Chocolate Emporium is the worst restaurant experience I've ever had. And that is all the questions. That was probably like 40 to 50 questions that I just ripped off the top of my head in 36.5 minutes. So, or not off the top of my head, I'm not gonna act like I'm that genius. I prepared all the answers, but I mean, I've been talking straight, no pauses, no breaks, no edits, no cuts. But that does it for my first ever YouTube video. So thank you all for watching. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. If you want questions answered in the next Q&A video, comment them down below but under this video. And my next video will be on Tuesday, like I mentioned, which will be the review of How to Blow Up a Pipeline, as well as an interview with 3 members of the cast. So very excited and nervous for y'all to see that. But yeah, subscribe. We'll see you in the next one. And I hope you enjoyed my first ever YouTube video.